In this session we will be dealing with this pedagogy of teleconference. The issue of pedagogy of teleconference, instructional design of teleconference has always been raised by educators, particularly because this is a new technique. Teleconferencing is a new way of delivering education and training, and because of this technology many teachers need to rethink about their approaches to teaching and learning. We have designed this session in order to enable you to describe the pedagogy of teleconference, list the nature of interactions that you can do through teleconference, and state the importance of interactivity in teleconference, and of course use different interactive techniques in teleconference. In doing so, we will actually be demonstrating some of the technologies, and in process we will bring in two experts online to demonstrate how we can make the teleconference session interactive. We will also use some other techniques in the process to demonstrate you how we can make the teleconference session pedagogically more active. And with this brief introduction, I request Dr. Parhar to proceed the session, please.
Thank you, Sanjay. All the research studies since 1963, it showed that broadcast medium has no impact of learning, and on the other hand the interactive television has impact of learning. Those studies also show that children were quite happy with the broadcast media because it was something new to them, but it had no impact on the learning. Now, how to bring in this interactivity, or what is the pedagogical issues of the satellite based education? Pedagogy is art and science of teaching learning process. So what is learning basically? The learning is information collection, storage and retrieval, which leads to lower order cognition. And all the psychologists, especially the Bloom, if you read it, the psychologist, it says that the collection, storage and retrieval of information only leads to lower order cognition, which is basically called fragile learning. The information which received, it should be processed. What we call it as the mind processing. Mind processes the information. So the processing is mainly one individual processes late, some individuals they process it quick fast. Like for example, I read and comprehend a page in 5 minutes, maybe Murthy requires 3 minutes and Sanjay requires just 2 minutes to do the same information processing. So it varies from individual to individual that how learning is or how information is processed. But the most important part is that the information received should be compared, should be experimented, and it should be evaluated. Comparing, like let's see an example, like if you compare two things, like you compare Thorndike's of School of Learning or Thorndike's learning with the Freud's learning or with the Skinner's learning. So once the individual starts comparing the information, learning is at the higher order and it is more sustainable basically. Experimenting, same thing, unless and until an individual or people they start experimenting it, you verify the hypothesis, the learning is again at the lower level, it is not at the higher order. And the last is evaluating, that you evaluate certain things, you judge certain things. Suppose the two universities we have the UK Open University and we have Athabasca Open University. You study the counseling, the learning material, the evaluation system of all the things, and then you evaluate, the judge, that whether the counseling system at Athabasca is better or whether the counseling system at UK Open University is better. So unless and until an individual starts comparing, experimenting and evaluating, we cannot leave the higher order learning, which is more sustainable. We call it in that terminology. What are the pedagogical interventions in that? We all know that we learn at the various channels. We learn, it is called basically a multi-channel learning system in today's world. We learn from our peer group, we learn through our own experiences, we learn through our teachers, we learn even through our pets. So what are the pedagogical intervention in today's system? Again, it is basically the teachers. They will remain dominant. Whatever we say, we being satellite, again in the satellite teachers are there. So teachers are mainly the predominant pedagogical interventions. Now if you see the arrow, the teachers, I have said it's not enough. It means not well trained teachers in pedagogical interventions who can teach through a constructivist system, who can teach through experiential learning. We don't have such enough teachers. Though we can train them through teacher training system, but all teacher training, the exercises have shown that there has been no quantum shift in their learning. It means we have seen that there has been no impact of these new methodologies or new techniques when they go to the classroom. No feedback studies mainly has been done. So you can identify certain excellent teachers and you can bring to the studios which can be telecasted through the satellite, and it can be given to all the learners. That what are the pedagogical processes involved into it? First and the foremost is the communication skills. I will not go into much detail because we want to show how actually interactivity is inbuilt into the session and can bring in more learning. First is the communication skill. So the presenter has to have, whether it is a satellite presentation or whether it is the presentation at the school level, the presenter has to have good communication skills. Second important point is the constructivist learning, which we are shifting from the whole science of learning is shifting from the instructivist mode to the constructivist mode, that is, let the learner construct their own knowledge. Third important is the interactivity, which Professor Panda also emphasized, that unless and until there is an interaction between the teacher and the learners, between the learners and the teachers, which Dr. Murthy will be dealing in detail, the learning will have no effect on the learner. And the last is the experiential learning, that unless and until an individual experiences, and that is more important in adults, because adults, they come with their lots of experiences, lots of knowledge, lots of understanding to a classroom or to a given situation. So based on the experiences, they can they can construct their own knowledge. What's happening, I will just sum up and I will pass on to Dr. Murthy then, or Dr. Sanjay would like to show the various techniques. Just last thing I would like to sum up is that there is a book by George Brown which is titled as The Little Professor, the Mobile Professor. It says that a chemistry professor or a chemistry person or a chemistry specialist always think that the physicist is wrong. But a physicist also says the chemistry person or the chemistry specialist is wrong. Even within chemistry also within that subject, a organic specialist will say an inorganic specialist is wrong and they don't know anything. Similarly, what is happening in today is that we are not going, or we are not looking at the research studies which are based on which are media researches, and what it says that interactivity, constructing our own knowledge, having experiential is more important for having an impact. With this, I pass on the session to Dr. Murthy, and from where Dr. Sanjay can demonstrate a few techniques of how interactivity can be built into it. Dr. Sanjay?
Actually, Dr. Parhar, we have some of the experts lined up there. But before we are going to the experts, I think Dr. Murthy would like to make some of the specific comments through which we would like to demonstrate that the interaction, how we can bring in experts, teacher students kind of things. That's how Dr. Murthy, please with your 3-4 slides, if you can and some of the importance of interactivity, then we'll actually go into showing some of the interactive sessions.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. I'll just take few minutes. Time is a constraint. We have to use it very judiciously and optimally to get the optimum results. Friends, in the first session we said that why we are using the teleconferencing mode video or audio is to meet the demands, growing demands. So that's the moment you say that to meet the growing demands, reaching the unreached, we are talking about precisely the quantum or the numbers. The other dimension to that, one is the quantum and the numbers, other dimension quality education, making the quality education, reaching the quality education to those areas where the no education is reached. How you will reach that? We talked that an expert is here. What Dr. Madhu said is bring Professor Ashpal. Professor Ashpal cannot go to every place. Bring him here so that many people get the advantage of that one. That is how. The basic thing what I want to highlight is whether Dr. Madhu has highlighted, Professor Panda said, Dr. Sanjay said, is the interactivity. If whatever we want to say, we can prepare a 1 page or 2 page write up and pass it on to everybody. There is no need to use this medium to communicate what we want to communicate. That is precisely this medium to be used, what we call that satellite based ICT enabled education. With that one, can you create an interactive environment? That is the precisely how effectively you can create, whether it is one-way TV broadcast or that, whether interactive TV via phone in or anything, how you create interactivity. That is why, so that the purpose is to optimize the learning. How can you optimize the learning? Otherwise, a best teacher can write a lesson and pass it on to him, but there is no interaction. The purpose is that if you want to have the quality, interaction is very important to optimize the learning. What you said is, I am speaking, there is no interaction from the learner. What type of interaction teaching learning is there? I don't know. But learner to learner also can talk it. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. In the classroom, 40 students are there. I don't think that 40 students are interacting even because of that constraint, time constraint, whatever. But here this method can create that one. We want to see that how can we demonstrate it. That's what, next slide you can have a look at it. This interactivity is possible. That's what the learning, teaching, learning. It can be, a learning can take place with one individual. That's what we call the self-learning. I can read with various sources and learn it, but multi-way of learning or the multi-mode or multi-channel learning, what Dr. Madhu referred is, learning can take place more than from the one source. It is learner can get the benefit from another learner, a learner can get the benefit from the advantage of the expert sitting here. That's what we try to bring. 3 people are here, but how many people we can bring in so that the learner can listen to them. The cross section of views, that's the basic purpose of interactivity, is that one. That's what you can see the slide. 2-way or multi-way of learning is possible to creating that environment of interactivity, and then facilitate the application. Okay, a student who has read a print unit or something, he doesn't know what to do and how to apply it. He is stuck up with that one because that is the limitation of that print. He or she read it. Then by interacting that one with the fellow learners through the method of teleconferencing, any teleconferencing, computer or video, and then interacting with the experts, interacting with the teachers, that will lead to, okay, now what the minimum learning I have learned it from the print material can I apply? Can be synthesis with the help of the other inputs from the various other learners. That's how the advantage of interactivity from the simple learning or information processing, what Madhu said it, can he go to the next level analysis and synthesis? That is possible, and that will lead to the application higher order cognition. What Dr. Madhu said is from the lower order processing to the higher order cognition with the help of the interactivity. And let us look at another slide. There are as we are talking about the simply is that, and there are many types or many layers of interactivity, whether it is a layer to learner, and that's what I said in a classroom, that is not possible at most of the cases. Even a teacher doesn't interact with the learner to interaction, you cannot imagine in the classroom situation. We know that how many times I participated in the classroom interactivity. That's never happened, but here that is possible.